In the last 12 months, Brian has sold over $200,000 in used Amazon to Amazon book flips, all while having a 9 to 5 job. And I'm extremely excited to get into it because he's had this really fast acceleration, which a lot of people do not have. And it's just really cool to see, how that happens. So, with that said, we're joined with Brian and joined with Victor. So, we'll start with Brian. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Good to talk to you guys. Always love speaking with you guys and learning more about the book business. You guys have changed my life here in the last year.
Awesome. And Victor, what's up, man?
Hey, there's very few people that have been as successful as Brian so early on, and it's great to like pick his brain. What made him, get so much higher quality books, higher quality products that other people are like challenged with. So it's really good to like understand what makes him tick. So I'm happy we're interviewing him.
All right. So with that said, Brian, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about when you got started. So if you wouldn't mind telling us the exact date that you started and what you got started with, whether it was thrifting, whether or not you went right into online book arbitrage, and then the actual kind of revenue numbers you've done since that time.
Yeah, thanks, Joji. So it's almost literally been a year. So I'll just say we're recording this on September 22nd. I think it was September 15th when I saw somebody for, probably the third time scanning books. And he was just at a library, like book area, right? And I asked him what he was doing. He was kind of explaining it to me. And then I went online and started looking at videos. And I think found some Romer the Romer videos, and I found some Steve Rakin videos about selling books and things. And so I quickly said, this seemed like it's something cool. Bought myself a scanner, started going to a couple of thrift stores and things. And then very quickly, too, I found your videos. I don't remember if it was the BookMine channel or Joji's channel specifically, but before October, so before I was even 2 weeks into this, I saw your videos. We're going on, I think, about a year since we had Books and Beyond last year. And
Yep.
so I actually was considering going to Books and Beyond to learn more about this, even though I live in Florida, it would have been far. But I'm just like, this is nuts what these guys are saying if it's half true. And I'll tell you for sure now, it's absolutely true in terms of what you guys are saying and what others are saying. But I just was moving and there were a lot of things going on. So I decided not to go last year. But I started buying books on Amazon, bought my BookMine subscription on October 3rd and been trying to do 10 books a day since. I'd probably say 90% of the days in the last 350 some odd, wherever we're at since October 3rd, I probably hit that. And some days I bought more too. So it's really been a great year and just trying to work the system, listen and learn more about that. And the last thing that I'll add is I did do other business models kind of concurrently with Amazon, but over the last few months, I basically transitioned out of all of them for various reasons to focus on this one. So I think that those things definitely helped with my success. Those things definitely contributed to some of my sales, but I think the vast majority of my sales are the Amazon to Amazon flips that I've been focusing on.
Yeah. I mean, well said. So you are coming to Books and Beyond this year. Really excited to meet you. That's going to be going down in a month. And yeah, I mean, you also have a 9 to 5 job. It isn't like you're just, this is the only thing that you're doing. You also have done other businesses, which I do want to get into in a little bit as well. But would you mind just kind of telling us what is your 9 to 5? Like, what is it that you're doing on a 9 to 5 basis?
Yeah, so I work for a company that provides compliance training to organizations. So, if you've ever worked in corporate America or you live in California or New York, you probably had harassment prevention training, maybe
Right.
code of ethics training, maybe people have had HIPAA training. So, my company sells that kind of training. And what I do is I'm an attorney by training. So, I serve as a subject matter expert, work with our sales team and help them basically position ourselves with clients, answer their questions, and make sure that we have the right solutions for them. And it's a good job. It's rewarding, I guess, to help it work with clients. It's good to talk to them day to day. But it's not my business, right? I don't have equity in this business. It's not something that I get to build from the ground up and have complete control over. And I had time and I had, an inclination to try to be more entrepreneurial and definitely want to get more into that as we talk about some other things that I've done in the past. But entrepreneurial is different from being a small business owner, I think. And Victor could probably attest to that too. Sometimes your business owns you and sometimes you own your business. And that's really something that I've come to find in the last year, even though I've been a small business owner for many years before that.
Yeah. So just to be clear, you have a 9 to 5 job, and I'm assuming you're sourcing outside of that time.
Yeah.
which could be, I guess in the morning or at nighttime, but you find there's sufficient, time and space to do that even despite the 9 to 5?
Yeah, I make the time to do it. Usually I'm sourcing in the evening. Sometimes I'll try it in the mornings. Depending on the day, sometimes I have to work 12 or 14 hours because there's certain deadlines we have to hit. We do
Yeah.
RFPs if people have done those. They're hard deadlines, they stink. And then other times I may not have a call first thing in the morning. So I may sort of like, flex some time or if I have a later call because sometimes we're talking with Australia or India.
Right.
And like tomorrow morning, I have an 8 a.m. call Eastern time with people in India for our company. So that changes kind of where you can do things, but it also means you're up early. But yeah, I always find that probably within 100 books on BookMine, I can find a book that I'll buy, right? I don't think that I go through 4 pages of 100 books and I haven't found at least one that I would buy at any given hour with any given filters,
Right.
at those times. Do I find 10 out of those 100? Probably not all the time. A couple of times, that's probably like a gold mine in the book mine, but usually, it's that, and if I go for, 300 or 400 books and I haven't found my 10, you stop, right? There's sort of diminishing marginal returns, you might not be into it, and it's better, and you guys have said this before, don't source everything all at once in your day, and I'd say you can do that, but don't do it if you're having trouble, right? Like,
Yeah.
going 400 to 800 to 1,200 in the same 2-hour period is not gonna be beneficial. Just give it some time to refresh.
Yeah. So what would you say you attribute your really fast start your launch essentially? Because most people, they dabble in it, they might sell a couple thousand. I mean, honestly, if they are actually serious about it and they are buying books somewhat consistently, they might start off with just a couple thousand per month. But 200,000 in the first 12 months is really crazy. It took me like 5 years to even get to 100,000 in revenue. And of course, back then, there probably weren't as many resources. I didn't definitely didn't have as many resources, but what would you attribute such a fast trajectory to, especially when most people don't see anything close to that?
Yeah, so having started off, I was doing A to A flips using BookMine immediately. Took me several months to get my coaching sessions with Joji and Victor,
Yep.
just because I had some, mental breakups with how that was working and didn't really do my homework. But I was buying books, trying to be consistent about it, and I wasn't as consistent up front. But I was doing thrifting, so I was going to library sales, and they had a huge library sale in Gainesville, Florida, where I am. They still do. I was going to thrift stores. I was going to library sales when I was going home for Thanksgiving. One week I sent in like a 10-box shipment from my house of
Nice.
books, and those were all thrifted books. These were not A to A flips. I started off immediately with a prep center, but
Cool.
the reason I bring up all those other things is I focused on getting the buy box early. And so it was very noticeable at the end of November, so less than 2 months in, that I got the buy box. But I also did some merchant fulfilled items. I mixed in some CDs and DVDs, trying to do things that we think may get you points with Amazon. It's all conjecture. But many people wait a long time to get the buy box. So if I didn't get the buy box until January or March, or if I didn't have it this last, May, June, July, and August, my sales would be very different, I think, than they were. So that's kind of one piece. Second piece I'd say is going back to the intrinsic value of the books, right? I'm not exploiting the buy box. I try to make sure that any book that I buy, I'm going to be able to sell for my minimum profit ROI kind of calculations, which we'll get back to, using the black line, using
Yeah.
basically the used price sometime in the years. So buying something that's underpriced today rather than focusing on sort of exploiting the buy box. And the third big thing is high school textbooks, right? So I went super deep in high school textbooks and, bought a lot in the spring. It helped that I have a job and I had time and I had a little bit of capital that I could deploy into those books, right? So
Yeah.
some people get limited in terms of how many they can buy up front or, have at Amazon in terms of their books. I look at this as an investment, right? I could put more money into my, IRAs and my 401ks, but I put plenty of money in there already. I was looking to diversify into something else where I could probably even do better in terms of the returns, and then we can talk more about that as well. So, those things that I think helped me out a lot, but I also don't want to, like, discount the community, right? Like, I didn't do a ton that was, like, novel and really interesting and new. If anything, like, I used the system and I sort of, didn't do all the things that you'd recommend in terms of like trying to get for the maximum profit at times. I was okay with lower profit. And at the same time, sometimes I went deeper, and those things kind of worked out for me for the most part in terms of certain books. So you have to, there's another group that I'm in that somebody says everybody's free to run their business as they see fit. So I think if you follow the advice, especially that you get from Joji and Victor and in the community, you'll do really well. It's very conservative advice. But if you deviate from that, that's your choice to do. You just have to make sure that you take responsibility for it. And I think that that's part of what I did this year, and it was successful for me. Yeah.
Well said, especially about us being conservative. Victor and I try to be incredibly conservative in all aspects, just because we don't want people to get hurt, and we do, want everyone to win. And yeah, if you do deviate, understand that you are deviating on your own behalf, and that you should own the results, whether those are positive or negative. So very well said. Um,
And if we like to recommend things that are like 95% or better, right?
yeah,
And if it's below that, it doesn't mean it's not going to succeed, but we don't know for sure, so we don't recommend that, right? So we're like, hey, buy 5% of the market, and that's it. Realistically, you could probably buy 15% of the market and still succeed. But 5% for sure is going to happen. That 10 to 15%, we're not 100% sure, so that's on you. And we like to live like by like that because we don't want anyone to lose any money.
yep,
100%. Another thing too, because I do have a full-time job and I'm not doing this to supplement my income or spending the money out of this, I have reinvested my, profits back into the business, back into more inventory. So
yep,
at first I was putting some of my money in, but I haven't really taken a ton out, other than to pay myself back for some of what I put in. So that's another sort of compounding factor that helps you kind of do that more. Whereas Joji, I think you were doing this when you were still in school, right? So you probably need that money for pizza and, going out on Friday night and everything like that. So, and I'm not saying that that's where you spent all of your money, but, taking profit first and some of those things there, that's definitely something that people should consider for their own lifestyles and their own needs. But at where I am, that's not something I need because I have other sources coming in.
yeah, that's awesome. I do want to dive into our screen. Brian specifically wanted to share 4 books, which we can take lessons from. These are going to include books that were wins, also some books that turned out to not be successful, which is also important to explain. When we buy books and it doesn't turn out right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's get into it.
This is cool. Anytime we get to analyze books, I'm all for it.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with a book that Victor holds dear to his heart because he has talked about this book a ton, including at Books and Beyond. And if you were at Books and Beyond 2024, Brian, which you weren't, but you will be there 2025, he specifically talked about this book being, would you say, Victor, this is like a $1,000 book or a $3,000 book?
A $3,000 book.
Yeah. So, Brian, what did you,
$3,000 in profit book.
yeah, $3,000 profit book. So this book, Ways of the World. Go in, Brian, go in and give us some lessons behind this book.
Yeah, so Victor and I talked about this book. He shared it in the group. I think he shared it specifically with me on one of the one-on-ones. You can see the used offer count, like, really building a crescendo there. But you can also see where it really comes down. And I'd love, Joji, if you could go back to the prior year, just look at the prior year bowl, because yes, we're going to look at this year's bowl now. But if you look at that bowl right there and the way that Joji and Victor have talked about it in other places, like, there's no other book. This is like the textbook example of a high school textbook having that bowl. And so, what was good and bad about it was by the time I was looking for it, I couldn't find tons and tons of inventory. But Joji, you've pointed out different methods that you can use to find additional inventory in some of your videos. And I
Yep.
exercised that, and I got up to having a bunch of copies. And all of the copies I checked before this call, I bought between $89.12 and $99.84. And so never paid over 100 and never really paid less than $89. But they started selling immediately. And one of the reasons why they started selling for me was I was willing to take just a 25% ROI on my book. I don't want to be in there pricing. Like in August, I didn't reprice any of my books because I didn't have time. Like I was traveling. I went to Hong Kong in August. So I have min and max prices set in my repricer for all of my books, and my mins are 25% ROI, and I'm matching the buy box. So if I can well, higher price in the buy box, that's fantastic. I think I sold a lot of these books at 25% ROI, which is okay because, you're still getting a pretty good return there. And I bought more than Victor recommends, which is usually a max of 60. I said this on a different call. I bought 143, and I 143. And I sold them all. And I set some in August before I went to Hong Kong.
By the 10th of August, Joji, he sold all of them.
Yeah.
You were done by the 10th of August?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And I had 10 in my house that I sent like towards the 20th of August, maybe, and they also sold.
That's
And
crazy.
maximum price though that I got was 175. So some people did get higher prices than that, but I don't think that the prices got up to kind of where they did above 200 pretty consistently the year prior. So I'm happy with the book and how it did. I don't know that I will buy nearly as many copies this year, but that bowl still looks perfect.
Yeah.
So,
No,
basically,
it's just you don't know how many you could have sold if you already sold out by like the 10th, right? Because like the 10th is still a great, like there's still a couple of weeks in August and September that it's at that same level.
yeah, absolutely. And so that bowl still looks great. So I'm probably going to be a little bit more circumspect around it, but you'll be out there competing with me if you see this book out there for, less than $90, right? I'm going to be looking every day for it basically between here and next August.
So basically 25% return on investment, meaning you're probably making around $20 profit per book, right? So
Prob-
140, what was that?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. So about 20 times 143. And again, you did say that you probably sold the last, or you did say you sold the last ones for like 175, which would have been more profit. So, I mean,
Wow.
even if you sold all 143 copies at $20 profit each, you made almost $3,000 off of one book,
Yep.
which is just kind of insane. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Again, a book that was widely shared, not only at Books and Beyond, but also through multiple videos. Why do we share those like this picture?
Yeah. Well, because it's profitable.
Yeah. And the demand is just
That's crazy.
right. It's
Yeah.
insane for that.
When I've talked about this book, the last couple of this last year, everybody points back to, well, the used offer count has moved up a lot. Look at the used. I don't know. I'm probably only going to buy one because you seem really gun hole about it. So I believe you, Victor, but I'm not going to buy more than one. What gave you the confidence on buying, that many copies? Even after I said the most I've ever bought of any book is 60, you went past that point and was like, I'm going to buy even more than that. What gave you that confidence?
Well, I mean, you had 100 in terms of like the offer count in like May, right?
Yep.
So
Right.
yes, it was building, but that's because people are trading up to this book, right? Ways of the World, the last two are also profitable books that I think all three of us flipped this year.
Yeah.
Not nearly as many, maybe not quite as much profit, certainly not at the same dollar amounts. And so if you look at that bowl and you're just saying, so this is like when you get down into it, what is it? It's like the, top thousand book, at Amazon. Like, they're selling more copies of this than Harry Potter that day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right.
And if you look at where we are now in terms of the used offer count and everything, they went, right? Like, yeah, you had to wait, but they're still selling every single day. Like that
Yeah.
goal is still down there today. So I had to
There's 8 users left. There's 8 sellers left. Wow.
Yeah.
and there's no for, lowest 150 for people who have new copies. They're probably trying to get rid of them. But, part of that is I'd be holding until next year if I wouldn't like to break even on this book if you still have it because
Yep.
it's going to come back next year. I would bet, that it.
Oh, it is coming back next year. I'm talking about it again as for the whole next year. So anyway,
All right.
next
Let's
book.
move on to the next book, Advanced Placement. So what can you tell us about this book?
Yeah, so this was the second highest number of sales that I did. Another book where I was just seeing it and it was cheap, and I'm just like, the bowl is really good. I'd love for you to go back to the bowl from the prior year.
Talk more.
Almost better. It's longer. But the difference between this book and the other book is the price, right? So I sold this book between $21.91 and $49.94 in terms of my prices. Most of them were between $30 and $35.
Yep.
And I bought them between $7.50 and $12.94. So
Yep.
depending what I sold them for, again, I was getting 25%, ROI and everything. But you can see the demand just crater there in August. It just almost went straight down.
Yep.
And it didn't go straight down when you zoom in. But it doesn't have to be an expensive book is
Yep.
part of the point here. So for 125 of these at roughly $10 a piece, I bought $1,000 worth of books and trying to look at the, ROI that I'll make on it at, $10 into 30. making maybe $4 or $5 a book, 38, 40% ROI. So, $400 probably, off
$4 profit book.
$400 profit book off of $1,000 investment.
And the
Right.
crazy thing is that what level of you having to prep this book, touch it, put it in boxes, ship it? How much work was involved outside of purchasing the book, which was just clicking a couple buttons?
Well, here's a mistake that I made that I only corrected in the last 2 weeks, which was I had returns coming to my house, and now they're going to my prep center. So with
There you go.
flips, I send them to Frank at Little Owl. Thank you, Frank, and your team. And I didn't have my returns going to Frank, which was a mistake. So if you don't have your returns going to Frank, you might as well do that. Yes, you pay a fee, but I did have to touch some of these books as a result of that. I also have a couple
Well, the returns.
The returns.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I also have a couple of sellers that I buy from that won't send to Frank, like he's blacklisted. They cancel the orders all the time. So if I buy from them, I send them to my house and I send them in. But, other than that, I didn't have to peel stickers. I didn't have to put stickers on them, do any of that stuff. And maybe I touch like 4 or 5 of these 2 books that you're showing here. And this is just another one. I
Yep.
pulled 93 of this other one, slightly, higher prices sold, slightly lower price to buy in for some of them, but
Yep.
same sort of deal. You're just looking for those bulls. You're looking for that constant demand. And if you see some of that, for me, I'm not afraid of it. Victor, maybe you want to say something about like you said 60, you recommended 60. I went beyond that after a while and I said I'm taking that risk. So don't come back to Victor, don't come back to me if this burns you in the future.
Exactly.
People who got burned on buying not that many of another book last year. But for me, for $1,000 investment into this one and the other one, I didn't see it as a huge risk. So
I mean, well said. You take ownership of going beyond what our advice was, and it paid off for you. And in reality, for people who do want to do bigger numbers, you have to be willing to take more risks. And it's also a relative risk, right? Because if it's not like you only did this with one book, you did this with multiple books, right? So if you compare them relative to each other, it might be the same number. I mean, if you're buying roughly the same number of copies, even though it's at a way larger scale, it's still at a relative level the same sort of you know in terms of like being diversified between multiple books. If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah.
let's go on to this last book here because you said this was a mistake book with the old breed. So tell us about this book.
So this book I bought the first day that I started buying on BookMine, and that was October 3rd. I keep track in my spreadsheet that I send to Frank and everything. And if you look at going back, and Joji's about to pull this up, about a year back from October 3rd, looks like I could buy it for about $90 and sell it maybe for 180 or something like that. Yeah, I will. $90 on a book, maybe I will. And I did. And then subsequently, what happened was Amazon came back on this book that was published in 1984 with brand new copies. They have it on this book for the history of this book. You
Yeah.
cannot predict this stuff. And now I'm sitting on it. So, if you go over to, Amazon and you click on the thing, you'll see my book is listed for $159.99, which is an open cost. And it's listed as collectible, so I can have it up, but it's there.
Yeah.
I don't know if these new ones from Amazon are the exact same book or if they got reprinted or whatever it is,
Probably reprint. Yeah.
but
Uh,
it's competing on the exact same ASIN, so I can't do anything about it right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm curious if any of these sell on eBay for a higher price than new.
You can
Uh,
see there was one listed, but a lot of them are just down there with it, over the last year, so and I even found one of these in a bookstore at a book sale earlier this year that I was at.
mm.
And it was a signed copy, and they wanted a lot of money for it, and I'm just like, "Nah, I'd buy it for $3," which is what I thought it was until they said it was an autographed copy, so it was a lot more. Only because that would have, like, gotten my buy price down, so I would have, like, cut them in half and averaged them out, right, if I bought it at 3.
Yeah.
But that was a sign.
Having looked at that data there, if we were in the same situation, I would have bought that book again, even today.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing being,
I don't know if that was the mistake. That just happens. I mean, this is gonna happen in any business, right? You open up a frozen yogurt company and, a half a mile down the road, they open another one and now you have to compete. So it's like you didn't know that was gonna happen, but now you got other additional competition. So that's just the marketplace.
You're speaking my language, Victor, because Joji wanted to ask me about my other businesses. I'm not talking about the competition, so we just had that happen with our other business, so that's always fun.
yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the other businesses that you've owned. And the reason why I want to do that is because most people who come to us at BookMine have never done any other business. Maybe they have sold on Amazon before. Actually, many of them have with thrifting or maybe some other type of Amazon selling. But outside of that, don't have any experience in small business. And even me, well, only experience I really have is selling on eBay, selling on Amazon. Victor actually had experience with a few frozen yogurt chains. And
Mhm.
Brian, I know you also have some experience in the small business world. So if you can kind of tell us just again briefly, because it technically isn't about those things, but just briefly, what are these other ventures that you have been part of, and how did those compare to what you discovered with book selling?
Yeah, so I have a friend up in New York where I'm from who had a pizzeria for a long time. He has been in and out of different pizzeria businesses that he's owned for the better part of 25 years, and has worked in that for like 40 years. And so he really knows what he's doing. He asked me if I wanted to partner with him because he bought a building that his pizzeria is now in, and behind it he bought another house that came with it, and it was zoned commercial, so he wanted to rehab it. And basically his idea was to open up a Mexican restaurant in a town where there's no Mexican restaurant within a 25-minute drive in any direction, small town. And so I said yes. I split it with him 50-50 in terms of capital and earnings and everything. We're still running today. I say it's funny you're talking about competition because it's a takeout kind of place. It's sort of like Moe's or Chipotle, that kind of thing. Mexican. And a different Mexican restaurant opened in the town. And what's funny is it also opened in the location in town that his pizzeria moved from the last place it was at. So it's sort of like it's that small a place in terms of what's going on. He and I also opened up a second restaurant a couple towns over, that was another pizzeria. And, he did really well during COVID with pizza, and he still does great in his pizzeria. But staffing is a huge, huge issue with any restaurant. And so that was kind of the Achilles heel that we had, less so with the Mexican restaurant, more so with the pizzeria that we had together. So we ended up closing that and selling that. And then the sale didn't quite, happen the way that we thought, and then we sold it again, and so now somebody's running it there, which is great. It's great for the town to have a pizzeria because it's a small town that didn't have one, but not great on our investment. So I put, you know, probably as much or more money into those restaurants, as I did this book business, certainly more actually, and not paid back yet. But with this book business, if I didn't put more back into inventory in the last month or 2, I'd probably be paid back in full within a year, which is sort of unheard of. If you're talking about
It is unheard of.
yeah, the margins and everything that we're doing here. And when I was telling my business partner about it, he's like, "How can I do that?" And I'm just like, I don't think you're gonna get on the computer and, look at all the graphs and everything. Because even today, he had to ask me for a copy of the paperwork for some of the stuff that we did together. But, I'm looking at my last 30 days, on my repricer. My margin, 25%. That's probably before some of my costs for, like, that's with Prep Center, but probably not with, like, BookMine fees and stuff like that built in. ROI is 59.2%. So, it's crazy. I target 25%. I'm okay selling there in terms of my ROI, 25% or $3, but that's not where I'm pricing things. Like, that's just that's if, like, the market isn't supporting more, uh, and I'm just trying to make it easy on myself. So yeah, it's been really good, and, the more things I can do to get away from restaurants myself, I think it's great if you wanna be there and you wanna run a restaurant. That's the way you're gonna be successful in this, and you know who you are if that's who you are. That is not who I am. Victor, when you had your frozen yogurt chains, I don't think that's who you were. Like, if you were running it, behind the bar and pulling frozen yogurt for people, something was wrong that day, right? That's not why I'm into restaurant.
Exactly. Right.
This business is much better, and, I'll go online and look at books, after this, that's no problem.
Much easier. Right.
What I love about doing this, and this is kind of going back to my speech at Books and Beyond 2024, was like I got to the point where I wasn't only interested in money, I'm also interested in time, right? Because I see those as both incredibly valuable resources. And in a way, the whole point of making money is to buy time. Like, actually, time is the most valuable resource of all. And so for me, the reason why I kind of settled on this, even despite all of the, shiny objects around us, is like, wow, when you look at how much money you can make relative to the amount of work and effort and sacrifice put into it. And again, I'm not saying that is easy, that literally anyone can do. I'm just saying that when you look at the amount of work, effort, and sacrifice that's needed to make this business grow relative to other things, it's just a no brainer to me personally. So, and I'm sure that's the same for you, Victor, right? I mean, you don't have
I,
frozen
I
yogurt stores.
yeah, I of course agree. The amount of time that it takes us to do any of this is kind of crazy. Literally, I'm just gonna click buy now, and the rest of it kind of just automated. And once I realized that that's a possibility that actually happens, and the margins are that high, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be here until it's gone, until we can no longer sell books, and Amazon kicks us all out or something because I don't know of another business that does this well. I mean, even casinos don't even have the profit margins that we have with books, and so yeah, I'm here. And anyone wants to join us, we're here and we're here to help. And you can see by Brian's success that it's still possible. You can still start today and still do really well. And so yeah,
Yeah, and I'll add a couple of things. So one thing too is, I think before doing this business, I'd consider myself a small business owner, but like I really got into the entrepreneurial mindset this last year because number one, there's so many different ways you can resell things, and I'm going to get to that in my second point, both on Amazon and on eBay and lots of other categories and things. And basically, once you start figuring out that you can make money doing stuff, it's almost like you can't not see ways to do this in various ways. So you have to avoid that shiny object syndrome. And exactly what Joji said was right. Like I used to go to, library book sales and stuff like that to buy books for me. Like the books behind me, this is not cold storage for, my FDM. Like these are my books, right? If they go well on Amazon and I check every once in a while, like I'll send them in. But that are reminding me that I want to read about, Andrew Mellon or whatever his name was, or some of these other, biographies that are out there. They stare back at me in terms of having them there. But I don't think that with my restaurants, I was an entrepreneur because I can't go in and make the food. Like that's not my skill set. That's not what I'm doing there. I'm doing the back end stuff and setting up the finances and doing the bookkeeping. And those are other things and they need to get done. With this business, I do everything. And I really love that about it. But what Joji said last year, I had all the time in the world in my evenings and my weekends, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And now I don't have any time because I have more interests, not just beyond this business, and lots of things that I could do to improve my business, right? Like I'm really caught where if I quit my day job, my book business would probably double. But it's a risk to sort of do that because of putting in the time and just making the flywheel go better. The other thing that I wanna mention, which, might be a hot take on this, but I like, giving people good information. I think this type of Amazon book flips is not necessarily for everyone. So, some of my success early on was I got into some groups that do thrifting, right? I've done things that, like Steve Rakin has for Replen Catcher, where you're doing eBay to Amazon type flips and things like that. I've personally moved away from those things for several reasons. One of which is I think this is much safer. I think it's easier to look at the graphs and everything like that. But like I said, my business partner who's used to making pizzas all day, he can go probably and scan books and he would do that. He would not look at graphs at books and just like click a mouse. Like it would drive him insane to sit in front of a computer for 2 or 3 hours a day. And so if this isn't resonating with you, like I just want to say that there are other options to do things and that's okay, right? This isn't the only one. I think that this has huge, huge benefits over the others. But their profit margins in some instances are even higher, right? Now, how much they make per book could be lower, right? And you have to send more in to kind of do different things. And you may have to do more work since you're touching the actual books or going to book sales or thrift shops or buying things on eBay. But these things do exist. And because I've tried basically all the things, right? I tried antique books and sent them all to somebody else to sell for me. I bought bulk DVDs and CDs. Joji and Victor know this. Like I bought like 30,000. I took up half my garage and half of another room. And I sold them to someone else who's going to sell them on Amazon. He's going to be profitable. I sold them and doubled my money from what I bought them at because I had good buys. I'm happy to be rid of them. He's happy to have them. So just don't like if you don't love this, don't do that. But the other thing is try to focus. And, I get behind in my business all the time. These are the things that Victor and I talk about a lot, which is my spreadsheet up to date with all my buys so I can update the pricing so I can have my repricer going. All of my high pricing errors don't come because I don't have the prices in the system. And, if you can't keep up with everything after a while, like it is a flywheel that you can keep going, but the buying is the fun part, right? That's the easy part. there are other things you have to do afterwards. You have to fix the other pieces there, and you can get behind on that stuff. So focus is really key. And,
Yeah.
you don't have to get ahead of yourself or say, oh, Brian did this much in the first year, so I have to do that, or that's the goal. You could have a much better, more profitable, more well-run business than what Brian did in his first year. And that's not hard to achieve. I made mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
Well said.
Well said. I would also like to add that Brian talks at larger scale than most people. When most people come to us and they want to start buying books, it's like onesie twosie. I'll buy a book here, maybe buy a book here, right? So I think one thing that definitely has let you shoot off is that you just had a way more. I wouldn't necessarily say if you even had the confidence because you didn't have proof really of the model working necessarily until it did work, but you just had the desire to want to take risk, right? And the desire to take money, park it somewhere, see and just see like what happens. And I think a large part of that as well is like you said, you have a business mindset. You also have income from a 9 to 5 job. Victor and I both had a 9 to 5 job for the longest time, and we were using, some of that money to start our business. And certainly I do think that having this on the side in addition to your 9 to 5 job, it just helps you breathe a lot easier because, yeah, there's obviously some risk involved in having an Amazon business as well, especially if that's what you 100% rely on. But I just want to point that out that, Brian's willing to take action, but he also sees success at a higher level because he's willing to take action at a higher level than most people are. And so that's possible if you're somebody who's really go getter out there and you're willing to buy 30, 40, 50 copies of a book when most people are like, oh, maybe I'll buy one, maybe I'll buy two. I mean, that's the difference in scale there for you. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'll just add one thing to that too. I think that my dad thinks he's a really good judge of people. I don't know that, but I know when I'm being sold something, and that comes from maybe in sales and working with salespeople. And I try to get on the call and build trust with our clients, and I think it's a very different thing. And that's what I got from Joji and Victor in watching their videos, in interacting with them in the groups, and then in meeting them in person, which I think gave me the confidence. Right, like they're telling me things, they're showing me the graphs, they're allowing me to go into the software and pick my own books and see if I can replicate this stuff. And it's hard at first, right? 10 books a day, your first 2 months is going to probably take you 3 or 4 hours, perhaps, because you're not used to looking at keepagraphs and everything.
Yeah.
And so, but I knew that I wasn't being sold a bill of goods or that like the best days weren't behind us with what we were doing very, very quickly. And so that's something I like. And then my last little plug here is you have BookMine Mini to start with, right? Like there's basically free options that we didn't have this time last year to start this off. And is it going to be more limited? Absolutely. But if you think that, you're trusting me or you like what Joji and Victor are saying, but you either don't have the capital or you don't know if the model's proved out, buy 2 or 3 books a day from BookMine Mini. Like go once in the morning, go once in the evening until you buy one book. You do that repeatedly for 3 months. And if you're not selling books like every third day at that point, if you've gotten them into Amazon and they've been there for at least a month, then, talk to Joji and Victor because something's probably wrong there. And you probably haven't had them at Amazon a lot. But like, you can't expect to sell more than like 0.5% of the books you have in inventory to maybe like 1.5 to 2%. Like
per day, that's the important part. Yeah.
per day. Over the course of a month that adds up, but even during tax season, you're probably not getting past like 3 or 4% unless you've got like,
Yeah.
copies of something. And so, but
3 to 4% is a lot. I mean, 3%
there's a lot of sucks. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to buy this book and it's going to sell in a month. That doesn't always happen. I mean,
right.
buy books every day that like have sold 20 to 40 copies in a year, which means you got to wait for that to come. But like, there are potentially 40 days out of the year that sells a copy. There are 365 days in the year, and I'm going to have to wait my turn. So,
Yep. Well said. And Victor, what's the cost of BookMine Mini to anyone listening?
It's completely free, and it will continue to be free. It actually costs us money to provide it, but we want to provide something to the community. So
Yeah.
we've been giving that out for a little over 2 months now, and it's been highly successful. A lot of people are using it.
Yeah. So make sure you check that out. It's linked down below in the description. Thank you so much for even bringing that up, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Well, you guys are doing a lot for the community. Same thing with Books and Beyond with the conference that you organize. Can't say enough good things about you guys from that perspective. And it's hard to know, right? They don't pay me. I pay them every month. I pay to go to the conference that they're putting on, all these things. But they changed my life because I was able to sell $200,000 worth of books this year because of them. My guess is that it would have been between $50,000 and $70,000 worth of stuff CDs, DVDs, books if I was just thrifting and doing other models. So this is what really allowed me to scale and get into those numbers. And 2026 is going to be even bigger. Period. End of story.
Let's
Because
let's talk about that because
Yeah.
I want to know not only what your 2026 goal is, but what is your longer term goal, right? For me, it's not actually to just continue to sell more and more every year. It's actually just to hit like a certain amount of income and profit every year so that I can live a certain lifestyle. And because again, specifically, and this goes back to Victor now, like we're more focused on time than we are money. So my question to you is, what is your goal for 2026? But then as a large or long term goal, what do you want to do with this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a direct best answer. But I think the first thing is that I have to get to, a place where I can potentially quit my day job. I don't hate my day job. Like I'm not like super eager to like leave it immediately, like sell, 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 in terms of trying to get out of it. But at the same time, I don't love working hard for somebody else's benefit if I can work hard for my own. Uh, if I had more time in my day, I could put it into this business. I could read more of the books behind me that I want to look at. I could do some other things that interest me. And so I think that, if I, you know, doubled what I did this year in sales next year, that would get me to a place where I probably would have enough income coming in that I could quit. And then I also have to start managing the cash flow from the standpoint of taking money out of the business rather than constantly keeping it in. And so that's something that I'm going to turn on in 2026, basically in January, start kind of pulling money out of the business more consistently that way. So in terms of big numbers, like I don't have, oh, I'd like to sell $1 million or something like that. I just want to be able to support myself. And, both of you have mentioned at different points in time without getting into the numbers that you have, a financial independence, financial freedom number that you have to get to. And I have some sense of what those numbers are. I'm not there yet, right? I don't have that sort of locked away in accounts that, I can go back to. So I need to make sure that I have a sure thing. Now, what's wonderful, and I'll say this part is if I got fired tomorrow, I'm not sweating bullets, like wondering how I'm going to pay my rent or anything else, right? I've got savings and things, but I can just start working on this as I look for other jobs and things of that nature as well. And then the next time I take a job, I could be more selective around the types of work I wanna do, and rather than kind of looking for a higher paycheck because this can start, giving me cash flow, right? If I didn't buy all the books that I buy in a day, and I sometimes buy more expensive books.
You do.
Oh, yeah. But, if I didn't do that, then this, would kick off funds immediately, right? Like, I'm books every day. Uh, Even when, there are challenging times and even when I watch my sales dwindle from last month, we've talked about this and it's good for people to know, like, if I've sold 200,000 this year, it's a little over that. I did 75 in August, 75,000, right? Like, 1 month was a huge amount of sales.
Yeah.
Coming out of that, and that went back to basically pay back a lot of the money I put in early on, some of these books. But, continuing to buy, I've already bought high school textbooks for 2026. And
I did too. I've already bought maybe more than 100 of them.
man, not enough to go like I haven't bought that many. You're telling me that there's good deals out there, but
It does.
yeah, I gotta go do more. But yeah, it is something that I think is important that I haven't put enough time into, which is just thinking about what kind of goals and numbers I actually want to set.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that everybody should really do that with their business and start small and start realistic, right? Like
Yeah.
if you've sold 10 or 20 books so far, like make your goal in a year to sell $10,000 worth of books or something like that, right? It doesn't have to be a huge goal. And if you hit it early, then you can revise your goal as you go. And I think that that's a really healthy way to do it.
Yeah. One thing that holds up a lot of people in this business is the prepping of their books. And I like to bring up the prep center a lot because it even took me a few years to decide to go, all in with the prep center. So could you kind of talk to us about how did you get over that hurdle of signing up for a prep center? How difficult was it? And then what's your overall experience with the prep center, having them prep your books, even though you don't see the book, but them actually handling, touching the books, conditioning. What's been your experience overall?
Yeah, lots of good things there. So number one, starting off last October, what do I know about prepping books for Amazon and grading with Amazon, right? So you're that I can pay somebody 2 to 25, per book to do this stuff, and I just, base it into my calculations. Like I use SellerAmp to figure out what I'm going to buy. It's like easier when I run my calculations, so it's kind of baked into everything. Does it stink when I get a bill, every week or two for a few $100? Yeah, that kind of stinks, but like I priced it in, right? And so, I didn't think that I needed to know more. I have sent books because I thrifted. I did de-sticker books in the past. The prep centers do not de-sticker books. You get your books from, Bookseller with the stickers on them, from thrift books with the stickers on them. The people are going to buy with the stickers on them. You know, People complain. I thought I was buying a new book. You sent me a used one. Well, I've never sold a book new. Yeah. Okay. Take it back. I sold 2 books that were sealed new, which was a mistake. I would never sell a new book anymore. So, you just remove that from those things, but it's fantastic not to have to deal with them. I was getting returns because I had a lot of DVDs and I got gated on one of the brands, so they sent me back over 100 DVDs from, like, 25 different, fulfillment centers over the course of, like, 4 months. I went away for 3 weeks, and there were, like, 100 packages here. I had to have my landlord come bring my mail inside because it's just, like, overflowing, and I inside my door so that it didn't get all wet and stuff from the rain and the weather and the sun. You don't want that if you can help it with the prep center. Is it all sunshines and rainbows? No. I have a system of SKUs and I got behind, but like my prep center, Frank, they sent through a whole bunch of them with their like, their numbering system. And I'm like,
Yeah.
those shouldn't have been sent with your numbering system because they should have went into my problem inventory, right? I used to stress about, is this book the right quality? Was it the way that it was supposed to be? Okay, I'm gonna turn it. You said, don't waste your time with that. Just send it into Amazon, send it acceptable. You know, if you sell 2 of them, like one will pay for the other and you'll break even on both. And then like if you get a return, whatever, right? Like it's costing you $2 to do the return. It's going to cost you like $2 to get it returned to you from Amazon before like the system runs again. So you want to make it so that you have to do less work in your business and buy back your time. And it's so difficult for someone to try to do that because you can be so meticulous in this business with all of the numbers and the buying and everything else. But like, if I can buy a book, put it in my spreadsheet, upload it, and then every once in a while update my pricing calculator, that's pretty much all I have to do for this thing to be on autopilot. And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Brian, how hard was it to sign up for Little While? Because a lot of people have issues. They think it's a really difficult process, and let me just keep on prepping my own books.
Yeah, it's very difficult. You go to his website, you fill out a form, and like a day later, he contacts you and you like log into his page, and then you have to connect something with your like token from Amazon, and he explains to you how to do it. It could not be simpler. If you signed up for an email account, if you signed up for like DoorDash account, it is probably more difficult than signing up with Frank. If you email Little Owl, like usually you get a response within 2 or 3 days. If you're new, maybe you get one sooner. They're doing a lot of throughput, right? They're
Yep.
probably touching, millions of books. And I don't think I've not been there and I haven't seen pictures, but I don't think they're a big space, right? So throughput is the name of the game for what they're doing. But I've always, Frank is always willing to work with you and solve problems as long as you're not creating problems for him. And so, they all have standard operating procedures. I strongly recommend you read them. If
Yep.
you're confused about what this is going to be, email the prep centers that Joji and Victor recommend. Ask them for their standard operating procedures. They'll send them to you before you sign up. And if you sign up, you don't pay them anything until you send them books. You don't pay them until they do work. And it's after they do the work that they bill you, right? So like they're basically doing work for free and billing you later. It's like a credit card that you get to use and pay after a waiting period. It's not quite 30 days, but it couldn't be better than sort of doing it that way. And there are new prep centers that come up. I know that people have mentioned different things coming through. You want to make sure you have a good one, and hopefully we can identify more good ones because I know that they can get behind. I won't sugarcoat it. Like anybody who's a client of Little Owl know that you got a couple of emails this year when Frank got behind on things in his team, right? Sometimes it's because people leave, like in my restaurant business, right? You still got to be open the next day and people don't really care that you could hire people to pay for, right? Just get the work done. It's not always how it works. And then getting new people up to speed can take time. And in a, sort of assembly line process like that, once you get a bottleneck, that really could just back things up, and it's very hard to like clean that up, right? Like I got behind in like updating my spreadsheet for them for like a month, and it takes you like a month to catch up because every day I'm adding 10 or 15 more books to my list. So now I've got to just like add 15 books before just to tread water from the day before in terms of where I was in a shop. Yeah. Everybody is human. They're helping you with your business. Strongly recommended out the gate. We know people who prep the books themselves because they have family members that do it, so it's cheaper for them. They have extra time. Some of them do it at their jobs because they have time at their jobs. I met somebody at my indie seller conference doing that. That's great, right? Like, if you've got downtime that you can do this stuff yourself, go for it. But like, go to Lister, getting a box, taping it up, finding the dunnage to put in, making sure you get it right, pulling out the ones that suck. Like Joji, I know you used to do videos on this because that's how I learned initially. Like, it's nicer not to do them, right? Like, you don't you get a chance anymore. So much nicer not to do them. And I still got 4 or 5 books on the floor that I got to send in and everything like that. I will.
Yeah. Well said. Like I said, a ton of value in this interview, and I kind of want to leave with maybe some things that have made you successful. I mean, we got gone over, I think, a number of them, such as consistency. I think you said in the last 365 days, probably 90+% of those days you did buy 10 plus books, which the consistency in my eyes is probably the most important thing. Um, but willing to take risk, I think, was also something that made you successful. Is there anything else that really stands out that you could, you know, say to someone else who's starting this? Like, hey, if there's one other thing that you can do besides these couple things, what is it that will really make you successful?
So I'll just give the playbook, right? You're starting from day one. And if you haven't done all these things, do them now. Number one, start on YouTube and go through the BookMine Academy and go through 25 or 30 videos. I'm not telling you that because I'm trying to pump their bags. I'm telling you that because I did that before I bought a BookMine subscription last year. There weren't all the videos there, but there were a bunch of them. And I watched them not once, but twice before I started doing this. And then Joji has a ton of other videos that go back, years and years. And I would start watching like one of those a day. Maybe start watching some of the newer ones before some of the older ones, but mix it up. You'll learn something new, take down the ASINs, and just start doing these things. Second thing, go on BookMine Mini and buy twice a day, 2 different times, and you get yourself in that habit with that consistency. If this is something you want to do, you have to have a seller account. You're going to want to keep an account. You don't have to pay Victor and Joji anything because the BookMine Academy is free on YouTube. BookMine Mini is free there. If you want to buy more books, buy more books. But you have to get them into Amazon. And then once books have been at Amazon for, say, a month, then start thinking you're going to sell like 0.5% to maybe 1% of those books every day. So if you have 100 books that have been there for a month, that's about the time you can expect that. But here's a caveat. That's if you have the buy box. And you're going to sell more if you have the buy box. And there's lots of other things that you can do to try to get the buy box. And this might be where other models of acquiring books can be useful to you beyond just sort of BookMine and Amazon, right? If you can go to a library sale and you can find a book that you can make $2 or $3 off of, and you can identify 50 or 100 of those books and you can send in 3 boxes, that's going to help you get the buy box because somebody's going to want that. You want to be the lowest price. Even if you break even on those books after everything's said and done, you need to get some sales going to show Amazon that you're for real in some of these things. So it's just tempering your expectations, but the consistency is going to be there. And, you should want this over a 6-month time period. If you're not willing to buy 2 books a day, get them to Amazon, wait some time, and do these things for 6 months, you should look for a better, scheme to make more money. And we can identify some of those, right? Like, Miami Sellers Conference is all the rage to become a TikTok influencer or an Amazon influencer or lots of other things that are probably easier just to make videos of yourself doing that if that's what you want to do. And maybe that'll pay you faster. But like, you'll see the dividends. Like we did the live last week with Tanner and Jeremy. Like, you can't make it up from those guys either. Those guys, are killing it. Tanner's been doing it for a long time now, several years. And he's just building on it every single year. And, consistency is the thing that he's doing and being opportunistic there. And Jeremy's hitting, big numbers this year, and he's family with that. So, but he didn't get there overnight. So you just got to do these like consistent things. And then once you think you've gotten this, pay for BookMine so that you get more stuff and you get it updated more often.
Right.
Pay for the learnings that you get from Joji and Victor. Like, I consider them friends, but like they are responsible for the profitability of my business, right? Like, I'm learning from them as much, and it's like me saying good things is just a little bit to give back, but it's just really to make it real for everyone else. So
Yeah.
Well said. Again, thank you so much for coming on, Brian. Tons of value in this for anyone who's looking to hopefully get started selling books. So, Victor, any parting words before you head on out?
Just thanks, Brian, for coming on. I'm excited to hear where you're going to be next year. I'm excited to see you at Books and Beyond. Definitely excited to see all of us there. And yeah, I think it was a great interview.
yeah, guys, go buy a book on BookMine Mini. That's the best advice.